to this, our next session of critical thinking. This session, we want to think about something that sometimes we take for granted. Let's look broadly from the beginning. From the beginning, we learn that God created the world and He put in there everything that we see, the living things and even the non-living things. And after He put there, then He created man in His own image. And He gave man the authority to go and subdue the earth, to multiply and fill the earth. From this story, which we always hear about, there are two things that come out. And these two things are what I want us to explore further and think about. That is the hardware and the software. What do I mean when I talk about hardware and software? When God created the world, He put there hardware, but there was also the software. And when He told the man to go subdue the earth and fill the earth, He was giving him the authority to go and design software. In other words, man was commissioned or conferred with the power to be a software engineer from the beginning. Therefore, it is God who constituted software engineering. So in each one of us who have been created and we are on this earth, we are within this hardware called earth. We have the power to be the software engineers. So let's not be intimidated by terminologies. These two terminologies, hardware and software, we hear them being talked about. Sometimes very casually, when you are going to the shop, you may say, oh, I want to go to the mall. Somebody else may say, before I go there, let me pass through the hardware shop and buy one or two items. And sometimes you could be asking somebody, oh, what do you do with yourself these days? You say, oh, I run a hardware shop. So the term hardware is familiar. I don't know whether it is universal terminology, because I would like to know how in vernacular language hardware is called. So think about it critically. Maybe for the purposes of this lesson, let's assume then hardware is a universal language. And similarly, software is a universal language. And the reason why they are like that is because, as I have said in the beginning, God is the one who constituted the whole systems to be in these two parts, hardware and software. And for a system to run properly, it must have these two. Let's think a little about these two terms, hardware and software. Look at yourself as a human being also. The human body, the body that I am in, this tent that I am in, this house that I am in called the body, that is the hardware. And then if it's the hardware, then what is the software? Let's think for a moment. Supposing I bleach myself and change my color, or I cut my hair, or God forbid, I lose a part of my body, maybe a limb or something. Does that then mean I cease becoming myself? I still have an identity, and most of the time the identities we have are names. I don't think there are people who have no names. Even if you have no name, sometimes you are called nameless. And that is also a name. Nameless is also a name. It's a noun for purposes of identification. And that identification, you find it is continuous from when you are young, when you are middle age, even when you are old. Hardly do people keep changing names. And even if they do, they just tweak a little, but they hardly change identity. What is that then that makes you have that identity? I dare here say that that is the so-called software. So that software is that awareness, that consciousness, the memory that reminds you, if I ask you, what's your name? You don't have to scratch your head. You already know the software is already there. With your identity, where do you come from? What is your nationality? These are some of the questions that are very easy, but we hardly think about it. It's because they are within our software. Let's look at other systems. Let's look at a building. When a building is put together by architects, by engineers, and the quantities are done, and good landscaping, it is furnished, is even put out for sale or to let. That is a hardware. What makes it then a functional entity? The functional entity is the occupation, the occupants. Maybe you have put in a mortgage. Maybe the titles have been registered at a particular names and transferred. That is the process of designing the software or putting in the software in that particular building. If it's a commercial building, it needs to have the businesses running, there's the management, there are the registrations that require the licenses for those businesses to function properly. That is the software. So far, we have seen that all systems must have either a hardware or both a hardware and a software in order to function properly. When we come back, we'll look at some of the things that make systems not function properly. And there are very many. We'll look at several examples. Don't go away because we'll be back in a moment. So what are these things that make a system just a hardware? Let's go back to the building. If you have a building that has been put up and is beautiful, completely finished, even handed over, but there are no occupants, that building is normally branded a white elephant. So what is a white elephant? A white elephant is a hardware without software. And it's not just buildings which can be white elephants, as we shall see in a moment. Let's look at your own system, wherever you are. You could be having a job and you have a job description, you have an office, you have furniture, you have everything. And maybe you just go to the office, or sometimes you don't go to the office, you hang your coat so to represent you, and then you go out to hang out with the friends. You will have converted that office of yours into a white elephant. Why? Because you are not there to make it functional. Lesson learned: when you have an office to run, be careful not to convert that office into a white elephant. It's very easy to convert an office to a white elephant by making it dysfunctional or making it a very toxic place for anybody, any customer wishing to come in there. Watch out, because choices have consequences, and if you turn an office into a white elephant, then you have nobody else to blame but yourself, because you are given the power to be the software engineer, and it is not difficult. It's a matter of making sure you do what you're supposed to do. Let's look at another example of maybe a school, facility. It could have classrooms, laboratories, there could be dining halls, there could be everything put together very perfectly. But that is still just hardware. If there are no students in that school, no teachers, there are no governance structures, there are no licenses, you have not invited the ministry in charge of education to come and inspect and give it a clean bill of health, that again is nothing but a white elephant. And in Education Without Borders, we want to sensitize our learners, our viewers, our followers, that let us not turn the systems that we have been given so graciously by God to be good custodians and just turn them into white elephants. Let us flip the card, the other side. Supposing you don't have the hardware, but you only have a software. Maybe you have a beautiful business plan. You have, the strategies. You have all the licenses required, but you have not domiciled it anywhere. You don't have an address. You can still work like that, but it's important to note that you may be falling into the danger of, again, being branded a briefcase businessman. Briefcase businesses are the businesses which can be conducted anywhere. All the systems, all the paperwork is in a briefcase you carry along with yourself. You don't have an address where somebody can come and say, this is where this business runs from. It has been registered on this address. It need not be a magnificent building. It could even be your home or where you stay. Make sure that you incorporate both the hardware and the software, because in the beginning, that is the complete system, the 360-degree system that God created these systems to be run under. What is another example of hardware and software? Let's think about a wedding. A wedding is a beautiful thing, memorable, a big day for family, and especially for the couples who are getting married. There are a lot of food, beautiful decorations, and a lot of work goes into preparing that particular day. I dare say here that day, the wedding day, the system, that function is hardware. And when the officiating priest or the spiritual leader officiates a marriage, they actually give you certain counsel, words of encouragement, and you are guided. You even go through premarital counseling and so on. That is the process of now creating the software. And in a marriage, the software is actually continuous. Creation of the software, the relationships, the tolerance, the understanding, that is software. So far, we have learned that we were all created to be software engineers. Let us think again about other systems. Any system you think about can be looked at as having a hardware and a software. Don't go away. In a minute, we'll be back with more examples of hardware and software. We really want to demystify this thing that intimidates us. When people go brag, oh, I am a software developer, I am a software engineer, big names. We are all software engineers. Don't go away. Be back in a minute. Which are the other typical examples where we find a system of hardware and software? Let's go back to the classroom, because this is education without borders, and we cannot go away from classroom. We cannot go away from learning, graduating. Let's look at a graduation ceremony. Just like a wedding, graduation ceremony is a big day for the graduate. They invite guests, they have gowns, there is a lot of investment into that function. And there is a lot of, publicity, marketing of the institution from which these graduates are coming from. I again dare say that function is hardware. Now, after your names are called and you stand up and you are asked to sit, you are asked to sit because the process of developing or instilling in you the power to read and to do all that appertains from that degree is the pronouncement that you are now a software engineer. So when you walk away, without waiting for that pronouncement, and you leave the chancellor alone at the dais, I dare say you have just walked away with only the hardware. You lack the software. You will not be conferred with the power to read and to do all that appertains to that degree. Indeed, it just shows you are not ready. And there's a lot of work to be done to start developing the software so that you can be functional. So next time, for those waiting to graduate, wait until the end so that you can be shown the process where you start now becoming a developer of software that will make you the person, the graduate, the worker that you work so hard in school to be. Don't just walk out as a white elephant. So when you graduate and you go, you wear the gown and walk away without being taught how to start off being the software engineer, you become a white elephant. So let us reduce the number of white elephants on our streets who have come out of tertiary education institutions. Let us all learn that it is our responsibility to start the process of designing the software in ourselves. This is Education Without Borders, and don't forget to subscribe, to like, to share this information as we continue teaching ourselves not to be white elephants. And the only way to do this is to know that every system, including yourself and myself, are composed of two aspects: the hardware and the software. This is Education Without Borders. Keep watching and we shall be back. My last example, I would want you to look at this object. This is just a traditional bell. It is a hardware. It's a piece of material. It has a shape. It has a material. It looks beautiful. And when kept somewhere, it really looks nice. But on its own, you can't call it a bell until there is software. So that sound is what makes that hardware convert into a functional bell. So let us learn to differentiate between hardware in whatever we are interacting with and software. This is Education Without Borders. Do not forget to subscribe, to share, and to like. Let us take care of our software. We shall be back.